Great British Energy. What does it all mean? Who are the Crown Estate? Can they make it work? Will it save us money? Will it clear up the environment? Let's speak with Angela Knight, former head of Energy UK. Angela, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Nice to have you with us. Listen, I keep saying this, I'm going to repeat myself here, but, you know, if there's such a thing as cleaner energy, if there's such a thing as cheaper energy, I don't know a person on the planet that wouldn't buy into that. But there's an awful lot of scepticism around what the government are currently doing.
Yes, there is. And it's reasonable to be sceptical about this. And the proposition which says, OK, we're going to have a company which will put some public money in and then join forces with private money for the purposes of investing is not a new proposition. What they're doing here is saying that proposition we're putting together and we're going to be, I forget what the expression is, but basically they are going to be investing in offshore wind.
It's a PFI thing, basically, isn't it?
Exactly. And that, again, that's fine. Not all PFIs go wrong. You've got to get the contract right in the first instance. But the more wind we build, the more we've got to bring it on shore, the more we've got to change the grid, the more pylons and underwater and underground cables that we've got to dig. The cost of this is huge. And I don't think we should remotely run away from that fact. Yeah. If anybody thinks this is going to bring us cheap energy, it's really go and lie down in a darkened room and get over it. What it will do is bring us more renewables. We will, in fact, ultimately have almost a twin energy system. One which will be renewables, that'd be fine when the wind blows, the sun shines, and another energy system for when it doesn't, but we still need to have electricity. And it's the cost of that dual system which is going to be highest. It's the cost of the grid which is really going to sit on our bills. Yeah. And it's the absence of paying attention to that backup that is needed for when the renewables are, wind isn't blowing, the sun isn't shining. That absence of attention to that backup worries me significantly and is key for energy security. If we want energy security, then right now we should be building something like a bank of small-scale nuclear power stations, do it where there's already connections to the existing grid. Yep. That is what I would like to see.
And that can be done, of course. You know, we always cite the Chinese on these things. They build this stuff in about half an hour in some extraordinary way. I've never quite know what they do, but there is a way to accept. It doesn't have to take 15 years to do this.
No. The 15 years and sort of £20 billion and all that sort of thing, that is the price that sits on those big nuclear reactors. Yes. Yep. The one being replaced at the moment in Hinkley.
Why is there a resistance, Angela, to doing what you've just outlined? It seems incredibly sensible to have that parallel system in place, which may even become more reliable and become the go-to source for our energy. Why are governments not talking about that?
Yes, the small-scale repeatable nuclear power stations, which are about £2 billion each, that take a space for about 2 football pitches and you can do in a couple of years, are obviously investable, straightforward, and there seems to be both a political and a mental block about talking about them here in the UK. And the whole sexy stuff is all about the emotion of offshore wind farms, of solar farms, of onshore wind, because that sort of is using nature for the purposes of giving us electricity. And all that is good. I'm not saying that that is wrong. I'm just saying that this is a huge engineering and huge expensive project that we're on in this country. So let's do it sensibly. And I never do find Ed Miliband sensible. I do apologise. I'm sure he's a very nice guy. But he jumps up and down and he never paints out a picture. He always it's a sort of a sloshy type of, a huge emotional outpouring. And the common sense is not there. And the common sense now for energy security is to build small-scale nuclear power. The common sense is to have the balance between renewables and secure, stable electricity generation. Yeah. And the more we go onto wind, and the more we just put all our eggs in that basket, then the more we are also going to have a plethora of more cables, more pylons in this country, and predominantly going from the east coast down to the south of England. So south of England is the big consumption.
Yep.
Off the east coast is where the wind is. So your pylons are going to be crossing Norfolk and Suffolk and Essex, East Anglia.
I mean, you cannot overstate the sheer size of what is... In fact, we just had one listener, Kim in Leicester, who contacted us and said he's worked it out. If you wanted to literally have parity with what we have now, you'd have to build about 103 million of these turbines around the country to make the thing work. And, you know, Ed Miliband, I think you rightly define Mr Miliband. I'm sure a very nice man, etc. But when he talked about the state should own and build things, that to me spoke far more than just that one sentence. That told me a little more about his ideological thinking rather than his environmental thinking.
Yes, but we've known that for many years. True. Because when he was the leader of the Labour Party, you know, that was part of the package of things that he wanted to do. But if you think about it, you know, politicians and governments, they're there to provide the framework to enable things to take place, not to go and run them. The minute you put politicians in charge of running stuff, it goes wrong. Why? Because politicians, they're not the practitioners. And that is perhaps the primary thing that worries me about the whole energy transformation project, is it's a major engineering undertaking. And it's being directed by people who have degrees in things like PPE and history and ancient Greek and so on. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not bright. They are bright. But, you know, you have to be an engineer.
Well, indeed. And I thought, Angela, sorry to interject, what you said at the beginning about, you know, is this going to make cheaper energy bills? I thought that was really fascinating, because at the moment, if you crunch, even just a surface crunch of the numbers will show you that that's going to be hard to attain. But also, you know, these sort of private initiative, private companies coming in. I can see the sort of private equity boys sitting there around a table in East London going, can we make some money? They're not going to do this if they're not going to get money back. And if they're going to get money back and it's not coming back through the consumer, it's going to come back through the government at some point. So it's going to be interesting to know what these contracts are. If you've got a guaranteed payback, then this could be far more costly than Mr Starmer or Mr Miliband are suggesting, and won't result in cheaper bills.
Well, I think that how they do the contracts is one thing, and I rather agree with you that probably won't be exactly what I would call the best contracts, because people need to make money. But the other way of thinking about it is this. Every time you build a quantum of renewable power, you've got to have the same amount of power as backup. I mean, even offshore wind only blows about 60% of the time. Wind only blows about 60% of the time strong enough to generate electricity. So that means that you've got the double expenditure. Now, what is that second lot of money going to be spent on? Well, you can say battery storage, which is fine if you're a house, but it's not if you're a town or a city or whatever. You haven't got the techniques there. The development's not there. You can say, well, it's okay, we're connected to the continent, so we'll take power in from the continent. Now, that works in part, but of course it's still paying for it a second time, because you're paying for that farm where the wind isn't blowing. You're bringing in from the continent. When do we bring in the continent? And the answer is we bring it in predominantly at cold times of year, where you have that sort of anticyclone that sits across all of Europe, where it's cold, it's dull, the sun doesn't shine, the wind doesn't blow, but it's chilly. Who's using the power? Everybody. Everybody, including those who have got power to sell in continental Europe. They're using it themselves. So the price is going to be significant and fine. What they shouldn't do, and any politician, is run away from the fact that you can't go and spend a huge amount of money on anything and then tell us, the users and the taxpayers, oh, by the way, this is going to make it cheaper for you.
Absolutely.
It isn't.
There it is. Listen, Angela, that's very thorough stuff. Thank you for giving us a great overview, a reality check on where we're at with this. You know, build your windmills, but be prepared to have a parallel energy source at the same time, which is likely to be fossil fuels. I think what she said at the beginning, that the resistance to the nuclear thing is fascinating. If somebody can put some meat on the bones of that one, I'm all ears. That was Angela Knight, former head of Energy UK, with us on the programme.